bad habit. I typically write it down on my little index card up here, but I didn't today. 93.7 FM. Beliucci Hour lunch here at the Tap on Harvey Road, as we are every Monday and Thursday. Come check out the Tap's great lunch menu. $8.49 burger basket today. The other special, $8.49 fried chicken sandwich. Comes with fries and a drink. I've got my protein plate. I'm back on my as little carb as possible diet, going decently well for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And a lot of stuff to get to today as we wrap up spring football here in College Station tomorrow with the rescheduled Maroon and White game. We'll get Billy's thoughts on that. Some storyline stuff to follow tomorrow for everybody that's going to be heading out there. Very hectic weekend in Aggie Land. Not only is the spring football game going on, but you've got Parents Weekend, you've got Ring Day, you've got Aggie baseball at home against Auburn. I have not heard of any schedule changes just yet on that baseball series. It was floated to me yesterday that they may try to play 2 tomorrow, but that has not been confirmed. And I actually asked around about that yesterday evening and didn't get a response on that. Is that something that would happen? But keep your eyes peeled on Twitter, and then I guess on however you front table guys get your information. I'm sure they got to fax y'all or maybe send y'all a pigeon, a Coke can. Y'all got one connected to the A&M athletic department. So keep an eye out on that baseball series. Could be getting some alterations in those game times. Really interesting, I think, because Auburn. They're going to roll out a guy tomorrow night in Tanner Burns that's as good as anybody in the SEC, just like we say every week. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens if they alter that schedule. When does A&M, let's say A&M throws or has to play 2 games tomorrow. Do you throw Asa Lacy tomorrow? I think you have to, because what happens if you rain out the entire weekend and you don't get to pitch Asa? That would be worst case scenario. So I'm always interested to see how those types of things are managed with the weather. I get Luch in here to talk about he went on a little trip yesterday, and here's what happened, and he's walking in, so I'll talk about it in front of him. He calls me yesterday at 4:30, asked me what I'm doing, and I told him that I was in the gym, and he goes, how much longer you got left? I said about 45 minutes. He goes, oh, well, never mind. I got a crazy itch or a little inkling to think that he was about to invite me to the Astros and Yankees last night, but because I was doing something that he doesn't like me doing all the time, or every time he calls me I'm in the gym, he wouldn't tell me that, hey, I've got tickets to the Astros-Yankees tonight. Would you like to go? You just left it.
That's exactly what happened. You are correct.
Okay.
And here's the deal. Here's the thing. I was called right before I called you. In full disclosure, you were like the 3rd invite. You weren't like way down bottom of the list.
That's about where I figure I'm at on your list. I mean,
no, you would normally be like way.
Stop.
Way. It would be like.
Hold
17.
on, we can't, but don't count females.
Okay.
In terms of males.
All right, then.
I feel like I'm
top
there's
5.
2
different places. There's male friends of mine, like my buddies, but they're the ones in Houston. So I'll give you this. Here locally, you are top. If you go local, guy friends, invite to baseball, you're top 5.
Billy, when you hired me X amount of years ago, this is exactly what I thought. This was exactly what I wanted in this town.
You never thought you would get to that level.
I've risen to such royalty.
The subset of College Station males
that
are invited to baseball games. You're top 5. So,
but I didn't get invited yesterday.
Well,
here's
why.
I thought you were going to ask me to go to dinner, and then I saw your Instagram.
So I got the invite late. I was wanting to go during the week, and I just never called and got it arranged. So I was like, I'm just going to skip it. It's the first home series, or second, I guess. But then my buddy called and said, hey, I got extra, 2 extra tickets. They were good seats. So I was like, all right, like, why not? And I called you. You're working out. I'm not going to have you. First of all, I had to leave like within 30 minutes. Like even I had maybe 45 minutes to get ready and get out of the house. So you weren't going to leave that gym, and you damn sure weren't coming in my car without showering after working out. So once you said that, and you said you had just started, I was like, yeah, he's out. I didn't want to make you. I didn't want to make.
Well, and you went to the series where you can't lose, right? I mean, that we've talked about this ad nauseum about your selective hometownism.
I've stated on the record, I root for the Astros over the Yankees, and here's why. They're they're just a more fun team.
I like the Yankees a lot more this year than I did last year. LeMahieu, I like Todd Frazier, and I like Aaron Judge.
Last night's lineup wasn't all that great, because Stanton's out, and then Sanchez didn't play. He came in and pinch hit.
Well, because he's not been great, and he's terrible behind the plate. The Astros didn't have Bregman last night.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm not. The Astros are better. My uncle is an obsessed Yankee fan and has been since, the 1950s, and I keep telling him, I'm like, don't hold out any hope because they ain't doing anything this year. And I keep telling him the Red Sox are going to beat them, and he's like, oh, the 3-9. I just don't. Once they got rid of Joe Torre, I didn't think Girardi was that good. He was, but I just think they're rudderless, dude. I'm not.
I don't like their starting pitching enough to like to go with the lineup.
Yeah.
So I think they'll make the playoffs. They're probably the wild card or second wild card team. But
anyway,
I think the Astros started slow, and all of a sudden they go at home, and then the A's team they swept was like a 96-win team last year, and then the Yankees they swept was a 100-win team last year. So the Stros getting it going right. And I tweeted last night, and we'll get into A&M football stuff.
I think every Astros game, by the way, that I've been to, Jose Altuve has
So here's my question. Pound for pound, Jose Altuve is the best player in sports right now. And I
best
didn't think
athlete?
Just overall player.
No, because I was going to say I watched a fight the other night with Lomachenko in boxing, and pound for pound, he might be the best pound for pound
here's
fighter.
My deal. Pound for pound, though, these guys, and somebody tweeted at me like McGregor and Lomachenko.
I wouldn't say McGregor.
These guys but they're fighting in their weight class.
Yeah.
Like Jose Altuve is going and competing in a sport where everybody's so much
weight
bigger.
Matter in baseball? I mean, it doesn't matter in the field. It doesn't.
So the only anomaly about Altuve is that he's short. Yeah. That's really the only anomaly about it because all the other tools are there in spades.
I'm going to tell you something, and I've met Altuve a couple times, and in shaking his hand, like I've been around with Carlos, a bunch of those Astros, and that's one of the more impressive pro athletes I've ever met, including guys like J.J. Watt and Gronk, these big, giant dudes, some of these offensive linemen over the years, D linemen. But, DeAndre Jordan, but
Myles Garrett.
Miles is a freak. Vaughn isn't. But I'm just saying one of the more impressive athletes I've ever met has been Altuve because he is so damn tiny. But when you shake his hand and you see his forearms and you could just tell he's a powerful dude. So I mean, I think of all the sports, obviously, height matters least in baseball, and if anything, probably gives him an advantage with that strike zone. I just think what's rare about him
is crazy.
But that has nothing to do with his height, right?
But it's part of him as the total package. Is what I'm saying.
Incredible, yeah.
And I think the best argument I heard was Lionel Messi, and I wasn't even taking into account international soccer.
Yeah, I saw that guy schooled you.
Yeah, that was pretty
You could tell me Messi's 5'4" or 6'10", and I wouldn't know. Yeah,
he's probably the greatest soccer player.
I know who he is. I just don't watch a lot of soccer.
So
I'm World Cup guy.
Maybe
what's the other?
The Olympics have soccer.
Olympics, World Cup guy. That's all I am in soccer.
A&M moves their spring game to tomorrow. We'll close this first segment with just your thoughts on that move. Good move, had to do it, or was it something you thought that they maybe should have wrote out? And I'll ask from a recruiting analyst perspective, it has thrown a wrench in some of these kids' plans.
Yeah, I feel like A&M needs to get some momentum on the recruiting front going.
Well, let me ask you
this could have been that weekend.
If it doesn't work out in terms of visitor list this weekend, I would imagine with that staff and that recruiting staff headed by Austin Staubus and Larry McDonald, I would imagine that they're going to do something else.
Yeah.
They'll have
Why
like another
not?
junior day.
Why not?
If this doesn't work out as well as they want it to.
I think they should. I think they should, and I think they will. They'll do something because, like you said, they're forward thinking. They're not going to just say, "Oh, the weather screwed us and we can't recover." Because
That's one thing about it. They're
recover.
now they get complacent. I think with Sumlin here, they got complacent a lot of times on the recruiting trail, and they let momentum happen in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
I think if you feel like there's momentum in other places in the state on the recruiting trail right now, this staff certainly sees that and will be proactive about it to try to at least swing the pendulum.
Yeah, I think you have to look, and you have to say, look, OU's got momentum going. They're going to have a big
official visit weekend.
Yeah, and they got a lot of a couple A&M targets going on officials. I think Texas has momentum, although it's not. I think OU's got more, if we're being honest, than Texas does, but they seem to have a little. The good news is a lot of guys aren't falling off the board, but that could change this weekend, So it's, A&M, I do think maybe putting together a little something post-spring to get some guys. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be like the Super Bowl thing, but
let Terry Price cook.
Get a dozen, 15, 20 guys in here think outside the box and come up with something maybe unique that you haven't seen. So
from the game perspective, are you okay with them moving it?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful, you got to be safe, but you don't want it to get canceled. And more specifically, I think for recruiting purposes, you got to have something. Here's the deal. I know what you're saying. Well, it's hurt, the logistics of some of these kids being able to get here. But imagine if everybody woke up in Dallas or Houston or Dallas, Houston, East Texas on Saturday, and all these storms are going on. They're not going to come anyway. They're going to stay at home. Now, it'll be unfortunate granted, you don't want like severe weather in your area, but for any reason. But if this thing generally misses, and you go, could have had it.
That's the dice you're rolling, right?
But it's just not a diet. It's not something you want to play with. Right. Is weather. It's just again, it's unfortunate. It's like that hurricane game against La Tech. It's not the same magnitude. It's a game and it's a hurricane, but you just can't screw around with weather.
Yep,
you can't.
On the other side of the break, we'll dive into that spring game on tomorrow night. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone
on April 28th in
Welcome back out to the Tap Beliucci Hour lunch. Ryan Broninger, Beliucci with you live on Sports Radio Lefty to the Zone, 93.7 FM, as we get ready for the Texas A&M Maroon and White game tomorrow night at Kyle Field. Once again, big weekend in Aggieland baseball series at home. Ring day, parents weekend, a lot going on. If you're out and about on Saturday, make sure you bring something to keep covered with, as we're expecting pretty bad weather, and that's why they moved that spring game to tomorrow. So, Luch, we start looking at what may happen on the field tomorrow. I guess the first big thing that you're going to want to watch is what?
I do want to watch the other quarterbacks outside of Kellen Mond. I mean, again, like I said the other day, you're not going to try to glean too much into that. But I just want to see if one of them were to clearly outperform the other two. I'm not expecting that, but if that were to happen, that would catch my attention. So I'm looking there.
You know what I want to see?
What?
I kind of want to see Jay Sean getting not a ton of reps. I don't want to beat him down in a spring game, but I want to see him get 12 to 15 carries. And can he be? What did he learn from Travion? Did he learn to be patient in the hole, or is he going to try to bounce stuff outside? You know, what is his next step as a young running back? And if he's going to get the lion's share of the carries, you know, what does his progression look like since that bowl game to right now? Because I went back last night, Luch, and I watched the entirety, the first 3 quarters of the A&M Auburn game.
Yeah.
Travion was so good.
Oh, he's incredible.
Just the way he set up his blockers and stayed patient with runs. And
Let me give you some advice. Watch NC State.
Watch
LSU. Watch Ole Miss. Watch UAB. I mean, that stretch was some of the best football I've ever seen played by an Aggie.
I don't disagree.
An A&M individual with shoulder pads on, that was about as good a 5-game stretch or half a season, you can almost say, that I've ever seen.
I don't disagree. And so what I'm curious to see is, does Jay Sean show – because he's certainly explosive. Mm-hmm. But how mature as a running back has he gotten now that he's going to be the guy? And, you know, nobody expects him to replicate exactly what Travion did, and they're different kind of players too.
Can I say something? I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think he's going to be exceptional catching the ball. I think he's going to give them an outside element that wasn't there. Now, that's not all on Travion. That has to do with, I think, the blocking on the perimeter is going to be stronger. Eventually. And had Jace come back, I think Jace would have been a damn good blocker this year. Mm-hmm. But at the start of last year, he and Trevor Wood were trying to just figure things out, and that shouldn't be. Well,
they're about at the same spot as they were last year in terms of experience. You know, with Joe John there and 2 new guys.
I mean, really, at least Beal played last year.
And Trevor Wood had played, but not in that system.
Not in that system at all. And Beal's played in the system. You know, he's been in there on some significant snaps last year. But anyway, in terms of Corbin, this is why I have a hard time talking about spring games. It really is one more practice. And you're talking about, like, everything you're saying, I would say August. I would say let's see how he looks in September. Because
I agree.
Because right now, you're talking about a guy that's practiced, like, I don't know the exact number, but of the 13 practices they've had,
6 or 7.
maybe practiced 5. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So he, you know, and it was a hamstring. So I don't know how much workload they'll give him. I mean, if he's going to be out there practicing, he's going to practice. They're not going to, like, totally baby him. But that's the thing. Like, those receivers, they're not going to cancel the spring game like TCU did. But Davis, Kendrick Rogers,
Hez
now has been out. You've got Davis and Rogers missed extensive time with minor stuff, but enough to keep them out. Rashad Paul's missed action. So, again, this has been one of those springs where certain positions have been hit hard by injury, not significant. So the good news is I don't think they've had a major injury in the spring. But the bad news is there's been a lot of guys banged up. So I have a hard time looking at one practice and trying to glean a whole lot. I'll tell you what I'm excited to see is just that entire defensive line in action for the 1s and 2s. and I want to see how they do. I want to see how the Aggie offensive line
This will be one of the
does against
one of the
them.
toughest
I think
coaching jobs for Josh Henson of this calendar year, maybe this spring game.
It's been a tough road for those guys inside as they're trying to figure stuff out. You're trying to figure out who your center is. You're trying to replace McCoy, who to me was the best center in college football. And then you've also lost a guard, so it's 2/3 of your interior. Hawker's been out. He was out for an extended period at some point there. A lot of things, a lot of instability in there on the inside, and that's not the place you want to be unstable at. And I think it's had an effect kind of on the offense this spring because those inside guys for A&M are so damn good.
I think it does leave the door open more so because of the injuries and the uncertainty and kind of revolving door in there. And they're mixing and matching, trying to figure it out. But it does leave that door cracked a little bit wider for Kenyon Green.
Yeah, I think that door is pretty wide, and it's got to be a wide door for him to fit through it. He's a big old boy coming in here, and he's going to be. I think at the end of the day, if he's as good and I got into it somebody the other day that was saying, "Oh, Caleb Chapman can't stay healthy. He's been hurt his whole career." And I go, he literally has been here 1 year, and he tore an ACL. I mean that was
he's been injured once.
90. Well, then he was out some this spring. But with the same injury, it was a pulled muscle. Like 90% of that time he missed is because he tore an ACL. I mean, it happens in sports. And I also had to point out the guy, it literally hasn't even – he has 4 years of football still to play at A&M. Mm-hmm. And you're going to go, well – and everyone was saying that about Alaka, who had actually quite a few injuries early on. And guess what? He started his last 2 seasons. I think he missed 1 game, the bowl game. Maybe he missed 2 in the last 26 games or so. You got to hang in with these guys, especially a freshman that was showing so much. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, they had those injuries on the inside. I think if Kenyon Green, again, I was saying I don't want this to say this, and he wasn't good enough to play as a true freshman, so he's done. I think Kenyon Green's going to be not good, but an elite.
Best offensive
SEC
line prospect I've watched.
At A&M, yeah, elite. Whether it happens next year or if it takes him some time to adjust, like a season to adjust. But especially at that position. But with that said, I think if he's as good, and we know he's got his head screwed on straight, so I think I would be surprised if at some point he doesn't crack into that starting lineup because, like you said, that interior has been really hodgepodge, mix and match, some couple of injuries, a lot of youth and inexperience, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for him to come in.
Freshman, early enrollee that you're most excited to see play tomorrow?
Early enrollee, maybe Derek Hunter.
Good answer.
Probably Derek Hunter to me because he has been playing in that rotation. And he continues to turn heads. Andre White would be another one.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard much about the linebackers, but I think Derek Hunter's a good pick. The one that most people will have their eyes on is Zach Calzada, and I'm actually excited to see him because we've gotten such good reports on how he's picked up the offense, obviously physically gifted enough with his arm to compete. But, Baylor Cupp is going to play. Of all those guys, he is going to play.
Baylor Cupp, I've almost I almost don't put him in that conversation anymore. Like, I really think, look, Baylor Cupp is almost like I almost call him like a co-starter, really, at tight end. And I mean, it's just almost like he's not he is a true freshman because he's still got a lot that he has to work on. And Jimbo and Joe John are, really putting him through the ringer this spring, trying to get him ready. But, I mean, I almost am like he's like a co-starter. And so I'm thinking of guys that are a little less obvious.
Yeah.
And
I'll be interested to see.
Calzada and Hunter are the two you'd be really excited about.
Be interested to see if somebody in the media can ask Jimbo, post-spring game, just What have you seen now after 4 months with Baylor that maybe you didn't know when you recruited him, and that's different than all these other great tight ends that you've had? Like, how is he standing out compared to what?
Well, we've got a couple people that go to those things and ask questions in Olin and Gabe, so we can.
I'll let Olin in on that.
Why don't you let them know, because I do think that's an interesting question. The other thing, like one thing I didn't mention when you talked about it that will be fun to watch is let's see how these running backs. You mentioned Corbin. I'm thinking it's more like I've seen Corbin in games. I've seen Corbin against Mississippi State when A&M couldn't run the ball, give them some juice and some spark. I've seen him almost hit home runs and just barely get tripped up. I've seen that potential. I want to see Vernon Jackson with extensive action. I want to see Cordarian Richardson. I'd like to see, Deneric Prince. I'd like to see if Jacob Cabote is hanging around and holding his own with those guys. But really, what I really am excited to see the two big guys, Vernon and Cordarian, run the ball.
I was kind of leads me into my next question, which I'll get to on the other side of the break. A lot more to break down on this spring game coming up tomorrow. You listen to